There's an info icon to help you understand the feature, and hovering over this tells you can provide specific instructions to the AI on how to interpret and use this column. I am going to look at some of the newer options here, starting with coaching from a conversation. Rather than having to navigate away to the coaching menu, you can go straight to coaching from the chat. This is a really important feature, as quite often the ThoughtSpot administrator won't be the subject matter expert on the actual data. But one that doesn't appear in ThoughtSpot documentation is how Spotter can be influenced and improved based on the description you give the model. Hi, it's Steve from 7D Experts, and it's been a while since I've done a Spotter video. And actually what's happened over the last few months, there's been lots and lots of new features added for Spotter. So I thought it might be useful to go back, have a look at all of these and try to give an overview in one video. As ever, this will be high level. For all the details, please see the ThoughtSpot docs site. If you're new to Spotter, I'd recommend going back and watching our previous Spotter videos, where I cover off in depth what Spotter is, how to use it, as well as how to coach it, as that will help lay the foundations for you. But for now, I'll begin with a really quick explanation of what Spotter is, then move on to a quick run through of the principles of coaching before looking at some of the features that have been added over the last few months. So what is Spotter? Well, in short, Spotter is the natural language AI agent that comes with ThoughtSpot. You can use it as your personal AI analyst, asking questions on your data and getting back business-ready insights in moments. Perhaps most importantly, you can trust the outputs because there is full transparency, as you can see exactly what tokens Spotter has used. Once you've created a model in ThoughtSpot and enabled Spotter via a checkbox, then it's up and running. But of course, whilst it's incredibly impressive straight out of the box, AI cannot know without coaching all of the intricacies of your business data. But of course, ThoughtSpot have this covered. There are multiple options here to configure and help Spotter understand your inputs and give the most accurate answers possible. In summary, alongside the core coaching, the following are more recently introduced features: data model instructions, AI context in models, coach Spotter from conversation, Spotter coaching access, Spotter context in reference questions, and the model description, which is a bit of a secret feature, this one. Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out how this can impact Spotter. All of these are of course dependent on your ThoughtSpot privileges, but chances are if you're watching this, you'll be a ThoughtSpot admin or similar. Let's begin with data model instructions. The natural language instructions feature allows you to provide the Spotter system with global rules that it should follow across all relevant queries. Unlike Spotter context, which is tied to a specific reference question, a natural language instruction is a standalone directive designed to teach the system a core concept, a default behavior, or a specific data nuance. To access this feature, when you're in Spotter, simply select the icon in the top right, and here you can enter natural language instructions. Usefully, some examples are listed to give you an idea of types of inputs you can give. Once done, click Save, and these will apply to any questions asked in Spotter on this model from now on. In the background, I'm showing the ThoughtSpot docs site, where of course it has the full detail, but I'm showing this to reference some examples that it provides. Next, and similar, is AI context for models. To use this, go to your model and you'll see a new column in the Model Columns pane. There's an info icon to help you understand the feature, and hovering over this tells you can provide specific instructions to the AI on how to interpret and use this column. This context helps Spotter better interpret a column and its values, using this knowledge to differentiate between similar columns and answer your data questions more accurately. You can auto-generate this context automatically with a single click to get started. Unlike Spotter context added to reference questions, which helps with similar queries, AI context for each column helps Spotter choose the correct columns and values for all queries. As for when to use this feature, again I've got the ThoughtSpot doc site open here, and you can see it gives some useful ideas on this. Next up, we're shifting over to coaching, which differs from the context features we've just looked at, in that coaching provides Spotter with the necessary information about the semantics and context of your organization's data. The benefits are higher accuracy, less dependency on analysts, consistent definitions, lower training effort for users, and ultimately faster decisions. I'm not going to cover how to coach Spotter, as that's been covered before in our Spotter videos, but I am going to look at some of the newer options here, starting with coaching from a conversation. As the name implies, when you're in a conversation with Spotter, rather than having to navigate away to the coaching menu, you can go straight to coaching from the chat, allowing a much more streamlined way of coaching the model. After this, we've got Spotter Coaching Access. And whilst this sounds very obvious, this is a really important feature, as quite often the ThoughtSpot administrator won't be the subject matter expert on the actual data. That skill more often lies with business users. And so, the admin is able to delegate Spotter coaching to specific users, and they can go ahead and do the coaching themselves without the need to work alongside the ThoughtSpot admin. To set this up, navigate to the model, and then select Spotter Coaching Access, and assign the users or groups accordingly. Providing this access enables these users to manage all aspects of Spotter's coaching, including the ability to view, modify, and promote coaching for more users on that data model. Moving on, we have Spotter Context in reference questions, meaning when you are carrying out coaching and setting up reference questions, which are essentially showing Spotter key, repeatable business questions and teaching it how to answer, you can add additional context. Rather than simply coaching Spotter to recognize search tokens in reference questions, you can now improve accuracy and generalize the coaching by adding context. These are natural language explanations of how to apply these tokens in similar queries. For example, you could tell Spotter to always add username, user ID, and user role when asked about the list of users. Finally, one that doesn't appear in ThoughtSpot documentation is how Spotter can be influenced and improved based on the description you give the model. For example, in a model, if you add the description of this model only cons data up to the end of October 2025, and if a user asks for data after this date, include a message such as, I only have data up until the end of October this year for testing purposes, so some results might not give the full picture, thanks for your understanding. This message will be relayed where applicable in Spotter, and it's just a really nice touch for personalizing Spotter for your users. So we've covered all those new and recent additions to Spotter, but it's worth pointing out that ThoughtSpot do advise that you start your model coaching by using the natural language instructions, as these provide global rules to Spotter. So unlike other coaching methods that have a limited scope, these instructions are used while processing every relevant query from every user. So start with these when coaching a new model. If we use the analogy that having Spotter is a bit like having a new analyst join your team, then you can consider this as the most important do's and don'ts that you would tell that new analyst. You can set broad, consistent rules, like applying default filters, for example, to resolve any ambiguity. Natural language instructions are your strongest tool to coach Spotter. Unlike reference questions and business terms, they're referenced in every relevant search on the underlying model. You can set rules to teach Spotter logic based on the user's query, to set up rules that apply filters to clean up the data, and to guide the system to use the correct columns for any analysis or filtering. Once you've set the global rules using these natural language instructions, then it's time to use the reference questions to teach Spotter. For example, if a user asks for X, then you should answer with Y. You can enhance these with natural language context, which lets you explain why the answer is correct. These reference questions cover the frequently asked questions from your users so they can be answered efficiently. You can also coach multi-step formulas for specific common questions that a global rule just can't cover. You can think of reference questions as telling Spotter how to give the exact same answers when the users ask the same questions. And then finally we have the business terms. This is the final and most specific tool, and it should be used as a last resort for specific reusable mapping for a term. Put simply, you can think of business terms as the mapping between the vocabulary used by users in the business, in day-to-day operations, and your data. Each business has its own definition of various metrics and a very specific way of calculating these metrics. Business terms ensure that LLM uses your definition of a metric instead of making any assumptions. So you use this feature to create a simple, universally true definition, such as mapping a value synonym. For example, you might have NAM in your data, and you're telling it NAM means the country equals North America, and guiding it for very simple universal formulas. So that's it for this video. But what I will say is Spotter 3 has just been announced, and this is set to be the biggest update to Spotter since it launched, allowing, amongst other things, full blending on unstructured and structured data, creating its own code, and advanced reasoning, to name but a few features. Spotter 3 is scheduled for release in early 2026, and I'll be there first to cover this as soon as I can, so look out for that. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a share, and if you want any demos or have any questions on ThoughtSpot, do reach out to one of us at 7D Experts and we'll be happy to arrange that. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.